In the past several episodes of History Traveler and American Artifact, we've been in southern Germany exploring all kinds of sites that are associated with World War II. One of the places that we've spent a considerable amount of time is at Hitler's Berghof. Now, there were plenty of items from Hitler's Berghof that we simply couldn't take with us. So we're going back to the Gettysburg Museum of History to look at things that we couldn't bring, and also look at a few items that came out of the tunnels underneath the Berghof that for years have been shrouded in mystery, but might now have an explanation.
I'm going to show you a few pieces that came from Hitler's Berghof on the Obersalzberg. Now, in the last episode, we actually saw this. This is a piece of flag that was flying at the Berghof. And we have another flag here that has an interesting story, but we're going to come back to that. Right now, I want to show you a few other items. The American soldiers weren't the only people to take things from the various houses up on the Obersalzberg. Some of the citizens of Berchtesgaden came up and got items as well. This is a really exquisite piece. This is a hand-painted plate. This is a scene of Frederick the Great, and it was hand-painted by an artist named Sophie Stork. She was a friend of Hitler. You can see she signed it S. Stork there, and she dated it. It's 1934. So that's the 20th day of April, 1934. That's Hitler's birthday. This was a birthday present for Hitler. And this was taken out of the Berghof, probably from the tunnel, because the Berghof was pretty much blown up and burning. And a lot of citizens went and got furniture and things like this. And this was sourced several years ago by another historian. Actually, two of them came out of there. The other one was a little bit different. It had a picture of Hitler's house, and it's owned by another collector. But what an interesting piece, and hand-painted. It's pretty exquisite artwork. Now, after the better items, such as the silver, and we've covered the silver before, were taken, American soldiers started to take other pieces. They just wanted a souvenir. Once the valuables were gone, they started taking relics, and we covered some of those in the last episode. But I wanted to show you this. This is a really big piece of the marble from the Berghof, from the fireplace. You can see where it's scorched here. One of the bigger pieces I have seen. And again, everything was gone, but when the later guys got there and they just broke little pieces off, they just wanted to have a souvenir of Hitler's house. And here's some other pieces. This is a piece of wood. It says it's from souvenir from Hitler's hideout. And if you notice, the date is May 27th of 45. So that's a few weeks after the first soldiers have gotten there. And this says it's a stone or a piece of the bathtub, and says keep it even though it's only a stone, and has a tag on it. And this is a piece of carpet. Either from the Berghof, but I think it may actually be from the Eagle's Nest, but all this came together. These items here were featured in Dr. Mark Griffith's first book on Adolf Hitler silver.
I want to show one other piece here from the Berghof. This is a piece of a stove. So this is a ceramic material here. And I think we've mentioned in other videos how Hitler's first house at the Berghof site was called Haus Wachenfeld. And it was smaller, and then they went in and like added on to it and expanded it to make the Berghof. But anyway, you can see this stove right here. So this was a heating stove to keep the room warm, so it would radiate heat out from these ceramic tiles. Now, again, this wasn't sourced by U.S. soldiers. This was found by civilians in later years, and most of the pieces like this are from the stove that are on the collector's market are just that, are pieces. This, as you can see, has been put back together. It was broken, but it's thought to be the only, I guess, complete tile from the stove that was right there in Hitler's house.
So this is a Adolf Hitler presentation, hand-hammered silver frame. And it comes in this case. He would give these to diplomats and friends, and you know, it was a gift item. And these are really exquisite. I mean, these are hand-hammered. It's got the AH eagle like some of the silverware, and it has the hallmark on it somewhere here. It's got a little tarnish on the back, but the photo would go in here. This was taken from the Berghof by a member of the 506 Parachute Infantry Regiment, 101st Airborne. And it has kind of a mystery behind it that was solved. It was pretty interesting. It came with this letter, and it detailed how it was taken. And I got it because I always wanted one that was from a 101st Airborne person, and a collector friend of mine bought this from another collector, and he told me about it. And I bought it because I knew it was 100% real and it was authentic and everything. It came from the Berghof. It came from a 506 101st Airborne guy. But when I got it back to the museum, I started researching some of the names on this this affidavit, or whatever you want to call it, statement. And this Donald H., I think he uses the word Bandman, was not on the roster at all. And the fact that he was saying he was, in this letter, he was a platoon leader. I just thought that was kind of strange, because we have the rosters for the 101st Airborne. Now, once in a while, someone doesn't show up on the rosters, but it's unusual, especially for an officer. So I contacted Mark Bando, who's World War II historian for the 101st Airborne, and I told him about it, and he said he did not know that name either. And that guy has a photographic memory, so pretty much if it was someone in the 101st, especially an officer, he would probably at least have heard of them. I did go into the rosters, and he mentioned some men that he was with, and those names did appear in the roster. So I thought, I wonder what's going on here. So I sent a picture of this to Mark Bando, and he recognized the witness's name here, Frank Gish. Frank Gish was a collector back in the 80s, and I think he's since maybe passed away. But he told me that he knew for a fact that Gish bought a frame like this and some other things from Don Zahn, who was a platoon leader in the 506. He got a battlefield commission, and Bando had some of his items. So he said, hold on, and he actually had a photo of Don Zahn holding, or had some of his relics from that are listed on this paper on a table, and him standing there. And sure enough, this frame was in the photo. So what we thought was that Don Zahn put a fake name on here, because we see this time and time again, and we've talked about this before. A lot of these guys were paranoid about having Hitler's silver. They were allowed to take war trophies home, but they weren't supposed to take certain items such as art and valuables like jewelry out of houses or anything. So a rumor went around, especially it seems like in the 506, that you could get in trouble for that. And so I think a lot of the officers spread that rumor to maybe get the men to turn it in so they could take it home. But anyway, this turned out to be Don Zahn's frame that he took from I think he said it came out of it came out of the tunnel underneath. That's the only place it could have came. It says that he went into the tunnels in this letter. But mystery solved. This is Don Zahn's Adolf Hitler silver frame that was taken from the Berghof. Great piece. Very interesting item.
All right, so let's come back to this flag. Now, again, as Eric mentioned, we've already shown this flag fragment right here. This was taken by a guy named Lieutenant R.B. Cross. He was in the 3rd Infantry Division, and as we mentioned in the last episode, this is a piece of the flag that was flying outside of the Berghof. Well, after they, cut this flag up and got into the Berghof, well, they got down into the tunnels, and old R.B. Cross found himself another flag, but he didn't have to cut this one up and share it. He folded this one up and kept it for himself, and you can see his writing there. It says, "From Hitler's House, May 1945, Lieutenant R.B. Cross." And he ended up nabbing a bunch of Hitler's silver and a whole bunch of other souvenirs. But yeah, here are the flag souvenirs that R.B. Cross took from Hitler's Berghof.